Have you ever really watched a shadow? I don't mean just noticed it, but really watched it move. The way it stretches out at dusk or gets super sharp under a single light bulb. It's not just an absence of light, is it? It's kind of like a silent twin that follows our every move. And for thousands of years, people have given that silent twin a voice. They've turned it into a canvas, a stage, a way to tell our most important stories. Long before movies, this simple, elemental magic, just a figure, a light, and a screen, was captivating entire civilizations. So let's dive into this absolutely breathtaking art form. For centuries, think about it, from the imperial courts in China, telling epic stories of dynasties, to villages in Java and Bali, where the Hindu epics would play out all night long. Cultures all over the globe figured this out. They understood that with just light and shadow, you could literally conjure gods and demons, heroes and lovers. You could bring whole worlds to life, all with these incredible figures that only exist in that magical space, right at the edge of the light. And that's really the heart of it, right? This quote from Folklife magazine just nails it. A shadow isn't some empty void. It's an active player that shows us form and texture. Just listen to those words. They dance, vibrate, and bend. A puppet that's held perfectly still can seem like it's trembling with life, just from the flicker of an oil lamp. It's an art form born from the most basic physics of our world, turning simple light into a living, breathing story. Okay, but before any Shardo can dance, a puppet has to be born. And this process, it's a million miles away from just cutting a shape out of black paper. This is a deeply skilled, almost sacred tradition of turning raw animal hide, this tough, opaque stuff, into a delicate, intricate vessel for light and storytelling. So let's get into the incredible craftsmanship that goes into making the very soul of this tradition. So the journey from, a living animal to a living character has these basic steps, but the real magic is in how it's done. It all starts with the hide, usually from a cow or a donkey, which gets painstakingly scraped, stretched, and treated until it becomes thin, strong, and most importantly, translucent, kind of like old parchment. Then comes the carving. This takes intense concentration, using a whole set of tiny, specialized chisels and knives to punch out these amazing patterns that define the character's face, their costume, their very spirit. Then they add color, but not so you can see it directly. The color acts like a filter, turning the white light of the lamp into these glowing reds, greens, and golds on the screen. Finally, all the separate pieces are linked up with string, control rods are attached, and just like that, the puppet is ready to come to life. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because it shows you there's no single right way to make a shadow puppet. Let's just compare two totally different traditions. So in Kelantan, Malaysia, they dry the hide out in the hot sun, making it super hard. The artists then use hammers and chisels to punch out thousands of tiny dots, creating this incredible lace-like texture you see in their famous locust teeth pattern. The puppets themselves are really bold, usually with just one moving arm. But now compare that to Shaanxi, China. They soak the hide and dry it slowly in the shade, so it stays soft and workable. This lets the artists use sharp knives to carve these elegant, flowing lines, almost like calligraphy. And the articulation, it's way more complex. A single puppet could have up to 11 moving parts, allowing for some unbelievably subtle movements. And right here, you can see the results of those different techniques perfectly. On the left, that's the Kelantanese puppet. Look closely at that texture. It's all about those tiny perforations, that pattern. The light doesn't just pass through, it's shaped and scattered by all that chiseling. It gives it this rugged, powerful look. Now look to the right at the Shaanxi puppet. It's a completely different vibe, right? The beauty here comes from those smooth, sharp lines and the way the light just floods through those big, translucent fields of color. It's almost like looking at a piece of brilliant stained glass. Two traditions, one art form, but totally unique ways of shaping light. So the puppets are made with unbelievable skill, but at this point, they're still just beautiful objects. Their real soul, their purpose, only comes alive in performance, when they're finally brought to the screen. So let's kind of move to the other side of that screen and explore how these little figures become huge characters in a living world of myth, music, and deep, deep meaning. At the absolute center of so many of these traditions, especially the Javanese wayang kulit, is the dalang. And honestly, calling them a puppeteer doesn't even begin to cover it. The dalang is a true master of ceremonies, a pillar of their community who's gone through years and years of intense training. They have to be a historian who knows hundreds of stories, a linguist who can do tons of different voices, a conductor who leads the entire gamelan orchestra just by tapping his foot, and a spiritual leader who can weave moral lessons into these epic tales. For an entire night, from dusk till dawn, the dolling is in command of the entire universe on that screen. And this is where the art goes way beyond entertainment and becomes this profound philosophical meditation. Think about it like this. The Dalang behind the screen sees the puppet in all its colorful, detailed glory. And those colors are actually a code for a character's inner nature, their personality, their virtues, their flaws. But the audience, on our side of the screen, we only see the shadow. And the shadow represents the character's outward actions, what they actually do in the world. So the whole thing becomes this incredible living metaphor for being human. It's suggesting that our inner self is only made visible to the world through the shadows we cast, through our actions. It's basically a beautiful 9-hour meditation on who we are versus what we do, all set to the amazing sound of the gamelan orchestra. But like any tradition that's been around for centuries, this beautiful inheritance is incredibly fragile. And it's facing threats not just from the modern world outside, but from a kind of hidden enemy, deep within its own materials. Let's look at the central conflict here, the twin dangers, one chemical and one cultural, that are threatening to silence these dancing shadows for good. Okay, so this is the ideal, a perfectly preserved puppet from 19th century Beijing. Just look at the insane precision of the carving in that costume, the delicacy of the face, the crispness of every single line. It's an absolute masterpiece, looking like you could just pick it up right now and it would be ready to tell its story. It's beautiful, delicate, and this is exactly what we're fighting to save. And that's the tragic irony of it all. The very materials that artisans chose to make the puppets more beautiful, to make their colors glow and make them more translucent, are now the very things that are destroying them from the inside out. And this is the heartbreaking reality for a lot of these collections. This photo from a storage box at the American Museum of Natural History is just devastating. What used to be a collection of priceless individual works of art has become a single, sticky, tangled mess. The carvings are fused together, the limbs are broken, and the individual characters are just lost forever, melted into this one inseparable sculpture of decay. It is a conservator's absolute worst nightmare. So what happened? Well, this old note from 1974 points to the culprit, something conservators call inherent vice. See, to make the puppets more transparent and the colors pop, Chinese artisans would coat them with something called tung oil. It was supposed to be like a protective varnish. But the thing about tung oil is it dries really, really slowly, and in many cases, it seems like it never fully dried. Instead, over decades sitting in storage, it's just stayed tacky, and that stickiness causes the puppets to fuse to each other, to paper, to literally anything they touch, resulting in the catastrophic damage we just saw. And as if a secret chemical enemy wasn't bad enough, shadow puppetry started to face a much more public one. In the 20th century, the glow of the movie theater and the TV screen began to outshine the glow of the puppeteer's lamp. That whole communal experience of gathering for an all-night epic was being replaced by watching something at home. The new screens offered a different kind of magic, one that maybe didn't ask for as much imagination from the audience, and this ancient art form started to lose its spot at the center of community life. But the story does not end in tragedy. This is not a eulogy for a lost art. Nope. It's a story of incredible resilience and creativity and adaptation. So let's see how a whole new generation of artists in Asia and all over the world are fighting back, not just to save the past, but to totally reimagine the shadow art for the 21st century. Okay, one of the most exciting innovations is coming out of Bali. It's a new form called Pakalaran Layar Lebar, which literally means widescreen puppetry. And the difference is just staggering. A traditional show is this intimate thing, one amazing dolling, one flickering lamp, a pretty small screen. This new form, though, it's a massive, cinematic spectacle. We're talking teams of puppeteers, live dancers, multiple narrators, and a giant widescreen, up to 8 meters long. They've swapped the single oil lamp for complex stage lighting, computers, and powerful LCD projectors that can throw up these dynamic, animated backgrounds. And this gives you a perfect idea of what that actually looks like. You get these huge, breathtaking scenes that feel more like a live movie than traditional puppetry. Here, you've got the intricate, traditional puppet interacting with this swirling, digitally projected background. The lighting is constantly shifting, and sometimes they even have the silhouettes of live dancers moving behind the screen with the puppets. It's a true fusion of ancient art and modern tech, creating this high-energy experience that can totally capture the imagination of an audience that grew up on movies and video games. And this spirit of innovation isn't just happening in Southeast Asia. Here in the West, artist groups like Manual Cinema, based in Chicago, are taking the basic language of shadow puppetry, light, shadow, silhouette, and using it to tell brand new, contemporary stories. They basically create live movies on stage, using a bunch of overhead projectors, live musicians, and a whole team of puppeteers to create these incredible, dialogue-free stories that have been acclaimed in theaters and even in major films. And this is just such a powerful example of how relevant this medium still is. Manual Cinema actually created the haunting shadow puppet sequences for the 2021 horror movie Candyman, and the director, Nia DaCosta, explains right here why she chose this ancient art form. Using the silhouette allowed the story to show these horrific moments of historical violence and trauma in a way that's visually stunning and emotionally powerful, but without being graphic or exploitative. The abstraction of the shadow, it creates this unique space. It honors the victims and gets the horror across without forcing us to watch a literal, brutal reenactment. It just proves the shadow's unique power to handle the toughest subjects with real grace and impact. So, from ancient Hindu epics to modern commentary on racial violence, it's pretty clear this art form has an incredible ability to adapt and evolve. But its survival's not a guarantee. It needs a conscious effort to preserve it and a constant spark of innovation. So let's just reflect for a minute on its enduring power and what's really at stake. This quote from a puppeteer in Beijing back in the 1930s is just haunting. It cuts right to the heart of the problem. This is an art of intangible heritage. The real treasure isn't just the physical puppets in a museum, it's the knowledge of how to make them, the skill to make them dance, the memory of the stories, the rhythm of the music. It's a living tradition, passed directly from master to apprentice, generation to generation. And when that human chain breaks, the shadows stop dancing. And that really is the crucial question that's going to define the future of this art. The incredible innovations we've seen are so hopeful. They prove that the creative spark is definitely alive. But making sure this legacy survives is a two-part challenge. It means carefully conserving the fragile, beautiful puppets of the past, while at the same time encouraging new hands to learn the craft, new voices to reinterpret the old stories and dream up new ones, and new audiences to gather in front of the screen ready to find meaning in the beautiful, timeless, and ever-changing art of the shadow.